Welcome to the Westport Library. Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Good evening, everybody. We are delighted tonight to welcome Ricky Lee Loftus, co-founder and dance department chair of the Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts, or NoCo. Located in downtown Norwalk, Ricky grew up in London, my hometown too. Started dancing when he was 6 and made his first West End appearance in London, London's equivalent of Broadway. When he was 7, after moving to the States 11 years ago, Ricky met his future partner, Danny George, and together they founded the Link program in New York City, which quickly morphed into the Norwalk Conservatory by 2022. In May, there's some enthusiasm in the room. In May, NoCo will graduate its first class, 38 associate degree candidates in the performing arts. Ricky will talk about NoCo with our very own Nancy Diamond, who chairs Westport's Arts Advisory Committee. And a long-time Westporter, Nancy was the co-founder of the long-running Play With Your Food lunchtime theater series and producer of short film festival Shortcuts. Let's first welcome first-year NoCo student, Dylan Bradford.
Nighttime sharpens, heightens each sensation. Darkness stirs and wakes imagination. Silently the senses abandon their defenses. Slowly, gently, night unfurls its splendor. Grasp it, sense it, tremulous and tender. Turn your face away from the garish light of day. Turn your thoughts away from cold, unfeeling light, and listen to the music of the night. Close your eyes and surrender to your darkest dreams. Purge your thoughts of the life you knew before. Close your eyes, let your spirit start to soar, and you'll live as you've never lived before. Softly, deftly, music shall caress you. Hear it, feel it, secretly possess you. Open up your mind, let your fantasies unwind in this darkness which you know you cannot fight. The darkness of. of the music of the night. can you belong to me? Floating, falling, sweet intoxication. Touch me, trust me, savor each sensation. Let the dream begin. Let your darker side give in to the power of the music that I write. The power of the music of the my song take flight. Help me make the music of the
Wow, thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Zach. So that was Dylan, who's a first-year student at the Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts.
Yeah.
Ricky, where did you find him? Where did he come from?
Funny story. Well, we like to joke about it at the school. We like to say that Dylan was on a construction site when my husband reached out to him on Instagram to say, hey, I just saw a video of you singing. Where are you going to school? And Dylan said, nowhere. And my husband said, well, that's crazy. You have to come to NoCo. And of course, Dylan said, what's NoCo? And next minute, we were in conversations with admissions, and Dylan was offered a scholarship to come, and here he is, thriving.
And where, amazing. Where is Dylan from?
Utah. Okay. Yes. Sorry, there's 91 students, and sometimes I do get it wrong where they're from, but Utah, yes.
So I don't know whether I should talk to you or Dylan, but I'll let you speak to Dylan. He must have had training. He must have been singing or in the shower or something.
No, so I think when I reached out to Dylan and asked what his formal training was before NoCo, the answer was I joined my high school choir as a joke. So that was his training, no training, and with a voice like that, obviously, you know, God is real and talent is crazy, and he's thriving right now. He's in final callbacks for the Sound of Music tour right now.
All right.
He was just in callbacks for the Book of Mormon musical, and a bunch of other stuff, So crazy.
Wasn't Ethel Merman told by, I believe it was the Gershwins, never to go near a voice teacher?
I'm not that old, Nancy,
okay.
so
well, I'm not either.
I'm not sure if I can recall that, unfortunately.
Okay, well then you'll just have to believe me that that was the case. Okay, so that was a way to start.
Yeah.
So people could get a sense not of who you are, but the kind of talent that you attract in our neighboring town of Norwalk. So let's rewind a little and let's talk about NoCo and how it came about and...
So the picture that was up here before with the students and someone was being lifted in the air, that was formerly the LINK program.
The LINK program.
The LINK program.
That was in New York City, right?
Yeah, and it was a 2-week program that started around 7 years ago now. And we would bring 16 students from around the country from different theater programs that we worked with closely and bring them to a 2-week intensive in New York City. We would bring agents, choreographers, directors, casting directors, you name it, and we would flood this 2-week session with like classes, nonstop, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. And it would culminate in a showcase at the end of the 2 weeks. During that first class, we had 86% sign with agent representation from the end of the second week.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
Wow.
obviously, like from any other showcase or like college showcase around the country, the typical rate of success is around 40 to 50%.
Wow.
And that really depends on the genre of the class and who's marketable at the time, because Broadway changes each season. And so you can never really get a definite, but 86% was like crazy to people. And people just started to email us and say, hey, can you produce our college showcase? Can you come to our school and help us redefine our curriculum? Can you bring agents to our showcases?
And where were these calls coming from?
All over. So Montclair State, Ohio State, Kent State, you name it, like Texas Christian University, like everywhere. FIU in Florida. And so we actually worked with 40 different college university programs to help their showcase. From that, the Link program, people started to obviously talk about the school. What is this crazy 2-week program that just came from the middle of nowhere? And Danny and I just thought, why don't we turn this into a semester-long training program? Something a little bit more, longer, more concrete, something where the kids don't just fly in and fly out, but they actually get to make connections with industry professionals. So then we became a semester-long program for a year or so, and the numbers gradually went up then. So we did 3 different majors. So we started out in musical theater.
Were you still in New York, or had?
Yeah, so we were still
Okay.
in New York at this point. This was around.
Up.
This was around our third
He's a dancer.
I sing too.
Okay.
How dare you? Then we started to add in musical theater singers, musical theater dancers, and TV film actors. And we thought that the quality of it would change. Maybe like the success rate wouldn't be as high because we had more students, and with that just came less jobs in the industry. There's only so many shows at one time, and there are people that are my age on Broadway in the ensemble who have been there for 17 years, and then there's new kids coming to audition. And so we thought that, we would see some kind of drop-off, but in our second year, we actually had 81% of success rate from our college showcase.
Wow. Okay, so fast forward, you moved yourselves up here.
Yeah.
Close proximity to New York, easy way to
So
get
COVID
kids.
happened, is really what happened, and New York shut down, everything closed. And so we moved out to Long Island because they had a facility there that was a theater space, a regional theater called the Gateway Playhouse, and they could house the students there for 2 weeks so they could quarantine and then continue training. So we moved out there, we were there for 2 years, and then we started to look at houses for ourselves. Danny and I have a child, and so we knew we wanted to be in the suburbs and not live in New York City. And we settled on Norwalk, and there was talk of Norwalk bringing a school to Norwalk, like a college program. And that had been in the works for around 7 or 8 years at that point. And Danny and I approached the city and said, we have this amazing model, can we bring it to Norwalk? And they said yes, and yeah.
So you took the road to accreditation to become a 2-year college. What was the reason for that?
Honestly, craziness. I don't know why we ever chose to do that. It consumed our life for around 4 to 5 years. But ultimately, it was the fact that, kids want a degree of some sort. And we knew that we would be competing against 4-year programs that offered BFAs. The only way that we could compete with students was to offer them a 2-year associate's degree program. And so that's essentially what we went after. And we started the accreditation process there.
And you're a not-for-profit college.
Correct.
And you are the first accredited
not-for-profit
college in Connecticut in
25 years, yeah. I know, kind of crazy, yeah, thank you. Another reason why it took so long too is that, I think there were a lot of things that came up in the process since it hadn't been done for so long that they just weren't aware of. And, we were going through it together with the state. And so it took a little bit longer than expected, but we were allowed to enroll our first class around 2 years ago. And it was kind of a sweet moment, actually, because we were in the middle of class at like 11 something, and we got the email to say we'd been accredited. And so
That's
Fred
awesome.
came running into the studio and was like, "We did it!" And everyone cried, and it was wonderful. Yeah.
So you started to say you have 3 majors.
Yes.
And what are they again?
So we have musical theater for singer actors. We have musical theater dance, so they sing, dance, and act. And then we have television and film acting. Yeah.
Okay, and you have how many kids in each?
16 in each major. We have a slight anomaly because this year we over-enrolled because that's what every college does in the hopes of landing at 16. And we actually had 18 students accept their position. So we have 18 in MT dance this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Which is a good problem to have. Yeah, and
a
they're
couple of
over
them
here.
are visiting here, our cheerleading squad, which is great. Okay, so now you've just settled in Norwalk, and I think we're looking here at your flagship building. This is
so we call this building the flagship.
69 Wall Street.
69 Wall Street, yeah. It's slap bang in the middle of Wall Street. It's actually next to what used to be the Wall Street Theater. It's now called the District Hall. This is our main building. This is the first building that we started out in. We occupy the space behind Fairfield County Bank, so floor 0, first, second, which is what you're looking up there, and then there's a full floor upstairs.
Okay, and recently you picked up another building that you refer to as The View.
Yes, it used to be the old Riverview Plaza. We just moved into this space in September of last year. And so it's still being done up. It's still very much a work in progress, but we occupy one of the whole levels of the mall, the old mall that you see.
Okay, so that's on West Avenue. Is everybody familiar?
It's on Belden, yeah. So it's actually 24 Belden Ave.
Oh, Belden, I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah, it is right there. The entrance is right there, but I think it's considered Belden. Yeah.
Okay, and you also have 2 dorms.
Yes.
Which we don't have photos of, but one of them is right near the old Garden Cinema, right on Isaac
Yes.
Street. They're rebuilding the whole thing.
Yeah, that's our brand new dormitory building, yeah.
And the other one is on,
East Ave,
On
102
East
East Ave, yeah.
so you see the perimeter of the campus is beginning to
Yeah.
develop, which is exciting.
And we worked with the city too to really create a campus for the students. So we actually work with a lot of organizations in the Wall Street area. So we utilize their space as well. Some of them are dual spaces, so they use them during the evenings, like for kids classes and things like that.
Like which one?
So GCA, which is the gymnastics studio.
The gymnastics studio, which is across the street.
Yeah. All of our kids are required, like I say kids, all of our students are required to take gymnastics. So they all tumble at different levels, but they all tumble. And they're encouraged to do stage combat if they're in TV film, so things like stunts and all of that good stuff. So those are the spaces that we use with other people.
I think we have a picture here, Alex, of Danny in the...
Yeah, so that's my husband. So all of the kids, we actually have an elective at the school, which is aerial silks. So they learn how to do aerial silk training, which is very useful for cruise ship contracts, actually. So aerial shows and things like Cirque du Soleil. Yeah.
Well, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you're about to acquire another building, which will be the cafeteria.
Yeah, so we took ownership of this not so long ago, just a few months ago. But this will become the cafeteria for the students. It will actually be a model where it's open to the public too in some capacity, but all of the kids' dining dollars will go through that cafeteria space. Yeah.
So that's a nice model because you're getting some income from it.
Yeah, and also,
support
again, it goes back to our mission to bring, vibrant, arts and culture and stuff to the town. Yeah.
So let's go back to that mission. you have a policy where every student is on some degree of scholarship.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's really a policy, but it's just kind of how it happened. And like one of our big things, especially for Danny and I, coming from where we came from, it was really important for us to offer this opportunity to all types of students, right? Whether you're extremely talented and you're on a talent-based scholarship, or whether you wouldn't be able to come to school unless it was for a scholarship. Like that was something that was really close to mine and Danny's heart. So it just so happens that every student at the moment is on a scholarship.
And you and Danny both had scholarships to study your trade.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think either of us could have gone to school without a scholarship. I mean, my mum, she was a single parent, and I grew up that way my whole life. And I actually auditioned for four schools when I was auditioning, and I got into all of them, but I never had the funding to go there. And my mum couldn't take out loans or anything like that. It works a little differently in London, but I actually had to turn all of them down. And then I re-auditioned the year after, and I got 3 scholarships to 3 different places, one being my school that I went to, and I wouldn't have been able to go if it wasn't for that. And it's the same for a lot of our kids at the school. You know.
Well, we've had many conversations with Danny and you about how important this is to be able to reach out to the kids who wouldn't be able to go without it. And Dylan might be a good example of that. He'd be laying bricks.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Like, and honestly, most of them are the most talented kids you've ever met in your life. And it's just, you know, the opportunity would pass them by because they would have to do something other than what they love to do, because they wouldn't be able to afford it. And, you know, I'm really grateful that I can help be a part of that.
So how do you find the kids aside from, well, how do you find the kids?
Yeah, so we're currently on an audition tour right now, actually. We're in like our final week of it, but it goes anywhere from November to March. And we go all around the country to different unified auditions, so Chicago Unifieds, LA Unifieds.
What's unified? I'm sorry.
Around 50 or 60 college or university programs all go to the same hotel for the weekend and the same conference space, and someone basically sets it up. It's usually like parent run, or, you know, someone whose child once went to musical theater school decides that they're going to invite all of the schools to one space, so that all of the students can audition for those colleges in one weekend versus going to everywhere. So we just did Chicago Unifieds, LA Unifieds, New York Unifieds, Pittsburgh Unifieds. Like, we go everywhere. But one of our biggest things was going to the high schools. Danny is originally from Miami, so he has the connection there for all the high schools. So we usually go to around 5 different high schools when we're in Miami, work with the kids, invite some of them to come to the school to work with our students, work with our teachers. Some get offers on the spot. It's very different for different people. Instagram is a big thing for us.
Well, that's crazy. Tell us about that in general. And
yeah, so a lot of social media is really big, like now, especially. And a lot of our students actually get picked up for projects from posting a video of them singing at the school. And the writer of The Notebook, for instance, just reached out to one of our students because The Notebook is about to go on tour. Just did a Broadway run. And one of our students just recorded themselves at home singing on the couch to this song. And the writer of the show reached out to her on Instagram and said, "Hey, I think you're fantastic." And she's now in the audition room for that show, like a week after. It's so crazy. But yeah, social media is really a useful tool for our students to promote themselves. It gives them a free platform to put their material out there. And towards the end of the admission cycle, we have like maybe 4 or 5 spaces to fill. And they're very specific, and so we'll go on Instagram, we'll sometimes at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and Danny goes, And I jump up and I'm like, what's going on? I think someone's in our house, like robbing us. And he's like, you have to see this kid. And he like shoves a phone in my face. And I'm like, listen to Dylan sing. And I'm like, he's amazing. And Daddy says, I'm going to give him a scholarship. And that's sometimes how it happens. And then other times is that they actually reach out to us. And they say, hey, we just saw your musicals in a minute, which is something that the kids work on in class. And we promote on our social media. And so people will see that. I think the highest amount of views we got was in like the 2-3 million range. And so people like start to contact us and ask if they can come to the school. Yeah.
So in addition to the dance and voice and television skills that they're learning in the school, what else is part of the curriculum? What else does the state require to fulfill your accreditation?
Yeah, so the least fun part for the kids is probably general education classes. Even though we have great teachers, shout out to Jeff, hey. It's, you know, we tend to tailor them towards their interests, so like what they're training to do. So we also have some that are required of us, like English composition, that kind of thing, neuroscience, yeah, all of those things, which I probably would not be good at. But yeah, you know, we do business skills, so teaching them how they can set up their own business, especially in theater and TV and stuff. You know, you really are your own business, right? You are what you promote. You have to deal with your agency. You go out on auditions. You interview on your own. Like, you are your product. So that's something that's really important to us. Yeah, but then we also have electives like aerial silk, which is fun, stand-up comedy, which is really fun. We have choreography classes, so where they can teach choreography, learn how to become a choreographer. Currently, we're training the kids how to be a swing in a musical. So if you're not familiar with what a swing is, it's kind of your role is to cover everyone in the show. So let's say there's 18 male ensembles. I would cover 9 of them, and the other swing would cover the other 9 of them. So one day, if someone felt sick, we would jump into their space. So it's my job to know 9 different versions of the show.
And that's different from an understudy. How?
Yes, yeah, so understudy, typically you just understudy one role. Yeah, unless you understudy 2.
So that's a real specialty, being a swing.
It's really hard, yeah. It's actually like where I spent most of my career. It's fun for me because my brain works a little bit messy like that. But also, I just get bored doing the same thing night after night after night for like 4 years, you know? So it's tough.
A paycheck would be tough too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you just like, it becomes second nature and you lose the joy. Whereas like you walk into the building and someone says, hey, Danny's off tonight, you're in for Danny. And you're like, I've never done that before. This is so fun. And in 10 minutes, you have to remember the show. It's like, it's crazy, yeah.
Do you have to be on site or?
Yeah, you're there every day.
You are there every day.
Yeah. The best ones are when no one's off and you get to just sit and watch Netflix for the whole 2.5 hours. But I would never say that.
So we kind of promoted this evening as changing lives and shaping community. Yeah. And I'd be curious to hear more about some of the lives that you're changing. I mean, I think we heard a little bit of how Dylan's life is changing, and Dylan just changed our lives for us, hearing him sing. Thank you, Dylan. But your kids come from all over the country, your students. I'm calling you kids too, I'm sorry. Come from all over the country. How many states are your students from, roughly? I mean,
that's a good question. I mean, just here alone, we probably have 7.
Let's just yell out
states,
where you're from.
Right?
What state?
Carolina,
North Carolina.
Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
And Utah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Somebody's going.
Yeah, and like,
so
I mean, there's tons. We have California, we have Texas, you know, Florida. It's all over the place. It's just, you know, a lot of our students, I mean, would go on to do something other than musical theater. Musical theater is not seen as a serious career. And I say that as, one of the heads of the program, but like, to parents who want their kid to make a career path, they don't see that in theater or television and film. Even though there's so many opportunities, right, for them to take, a lot of parents that we have conversations with, they say, like, I want my child to get a 4-year degree. I'm like, that's fine, but in musical theater, because then where are they going to use that musical theater degree after that? You can't go to any job that you want and give them your musical theater degree. So that's like a conversation that we have a lot with parents. We have tons of students whose parents, they're going to be a lawyer, they're going to be a nurse, they're going to be a doctor, whatever it is. And we kind of say, your child is very special. We're very fortunate that we're not a grab, right? So we take a select amount of students. So we're able to really offer opportunity to extremely talented students. And the likelihood of them not succeeding in this field is very small. Sure, it happens, you can't guarantee everyone a job. But we're able to say to their parents, like, your child actually really has something, and they don't need to go to a 4-year program to do musical theater. They are already amazing. They already have the talent. So it's now about opportunity and what we can offer them and, connect them to the industry, which is kind of where we found our niche.
So that's a good segue into Zayla.
Yeah.
There's Zayla. There's Zayla on the first day of class last year. She's a second-year student. And this was in August of last year, I guess, when the first years arrived.
Yeah.
And Zayla's from Louisiana?
Yes, Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about Zayla.
So Zayla, actually, again, we found on Instagram. Cynthia Erivo, who is the new Elphaba in the Wicked movie. She was in The Color Purple in the revival on Broadway. And Zayla actually was in The Color Purple at her high school production of The Color Purple, and she played the same role as Cynthia. And Zayla posted a video of her singing I'm Here from The Color Purple, and Cynthia reshared it and basically said, like, I can't believe this girl, she's phenomenal. And that found itself on our algorithm, mine and Danny's, and we followed Zayla for like a week, and we watched all of her videos, and we reached out to her high school teacher. And we said, can we come and work with your kids? Like, we're starting a school, and we would love to reach out to the talent at your school. The teacher was like, yeah, but I don't think any of my kids are going to come to your program. Like, none of them will do musical theater. They just do it for fun. We actually have 3 of those students in our school right now, and 2 more coming in August who just committed.
I didn't know that. Wow.
But
good high school.
Yeah, that's kind of
it's
a good story.
High school theater program, right?
Yeah, and their teacher is really passionate about the arts. Really great teacher, and so yeah, we actually work really well with their school. But,
so unlike Dylan, who had never sung a day in his life, Zayla was singing from the time she was little in church.
So Zayla's experience was in church. So she grew up singing in church, but also being a part of high school musicals through her teacher. But so we reached out to Zayla, and she said something along the lines of, "This sounds really amazing, but my mom will never say yes." And so we were like, well, let's ask your mom. And so we set up a Zoom call with her mom, and her mom got on the call and said, listen, I'm just going to start by saying she's going to be a nurse, and I'll listen to what you have to say, but it's probably going to be a no. And me and Danny were like, just give us 20 minutes.
Okay, so stop there. This is a good time to show everybody what's happened to Zayla in the last year and less than a year and a half. Let's cue up the video. That's Zayla.
What about tears when I'm happy? What about wings where I want you to be a story for me
okay, Alex.
And I'm like, Lord, if I remember it.
That was Jennifer Hudson. in
Yeah.
case you didn't recognize her. She too was in The Color Purple.
Yeah.
And Zayla asked her if it was okay if they sang together, which is how
Yes.
that bit happened at the end.
Yeah.
How did Zayla end up on the Jennifer Hudson show?
So actually,
From being a nurse.
Yeah. So, needless to say, we convinced Zayla's mom to send her to NoCo after a 20-minute conversation. Zayla actually came to campus for an open doors day with her younger sister that was in that video, and her younger sister was in the back dancing and singing around too. From that, Zayla actually sang the national anthem at our orientation for this year's class, and someone posted it on Instagram, and the Jennifer Hudson show actually just reached out to her. The producers of the show reached out to her on Instagram and said, can we find a time to chat? And she met with them on Zoom. They went back and forth a little bit, and they basically sent her a flight and accommodation and said, here's the date that you'll appear on the Jennifer Hudson show. And we want you to sing. Can you send us some options? And so she sent them a bunch of options that we talked about as a team, because one of our things too at the school is, helping these kids present themselves or students, present themselves as well as they can, right? Like, this is a business, so you have to think about what shows are coming up that you're right for, right? Like, what could you be cast in? How can we present you in a way that says, I'm perfect for Smash on Broadway, right? So that was a conversation that we had as a team. And then ultimately they turned everything on its head and said, can you sing this song? And so she sang the song that they asked her to sing, which was perfect for her. And then at the end, Jennifer Hudson was like, can we, let's sing together, which not every day do you get asked if you want to sing with Jennifer Hudson.
Really?
But basically she posted this video, and her team found it and asked Zayla to be a part of the show.
So this is where I, as a non-performer, start to get choked up.
Yeah.
Because our kids here in Westport are pretty darn fortunate. And if they want to study something, their families can usually find a way for them to do it.
Yeah.
So you're citing examples here of kids who don't have what, certainly in this area, kids generally do have. And it's very powerful, and what has drawn me and several other Westporters to be supportive of the school, because as a community, we are generally liberal, forward-thinking, compassionate people who want everybody to have a chance to succeed. Yeah. And what you guys are doing is so extraordinary. If you're a musical theater lover, as we all have our things that we are drawn to, but if you're a musical theater lover, the opportunity for these kids to have a chance in such a difficult profession, where, as you say, most parents say, sorry, do it for fun, but you're going to become a doctor, is pretty powerful. So, we thank you. We thank you for that. I mean, that's really a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
At the same time, these kids are bringing to Norwalk an exciting time. I mean, most of us here have not been to that part of Norwalk since the Garden Cinema closed, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's not a whole heck of a lot in downtown Norwalk.
Yeah, I believe there was like a flood there too that wiped everything out, like the 50s or 60s or something like that, right? And I guess no one ever brought any business back there.
Yeah, and that building's been wrapped in blue paper for almost as long as we've lived here. Yeah. But now, if you walk down Wall Street, you see these students walking down the street with their coffee cups and their logo wear and their earbuds, and they're laughing and moving and
singing most of the time.
And singing, and it's just a wonderful sight. And restaurants are popping up again.
Yes.
And signage on the businesses are changing and becoming more upscale. It just is beginning to look like a different place. And that, too, I think is so important to people here, because we want our neighbors to be in a good place.
Yeah.
So
We're so close too. Like one of our biggest things when we were building our mission was to not only offer like exceptional training to students from all over, whether they could afford it or not, right? To give them a great education in the arts, but to also bring arts and performances to the community through community outreach, through, you know, working with different businesses and things like that. That was something that was really important to us, which, you know, why train to do something if you're not going to put on performances for the community?
And you're currently looking for a theater space in Norwalk. You haven't
Yes.
found one of those yet, right?
We found one.
You're working on it.
Yeah, but it's a little harder than just finding one that you fall in love with. Obviously, there's things that come into play there, but yeah, we're really hoping that we can work with the city of Norwalk and, you know, obtain a really great space so that these students can put on their productions in Norwalk. We have tried to work with local organizations that have theater spaces in Norwalk, but their rentals are $20,000 a night. And for a not-for-profit, that's just something that's
too much.
Yeah, I mean, some of our shows we tech for 5 days, that's $100,000 alone. And then we perform for 4 nights, so that's $180,000, and that's without costumes, without makeup, without, you know, having the kids, you know, just be present there. It's very tough. Yeah, we're really hoping that the right space comes along that's a perfect fit for us, and we're able to renovate it.
We'll get to that in a minute. I just wanted to show one more slide of a big Westport fan of Ricky and Danny.
This is my favorite person in the whole world.
So joining us tonight is the one and only Ruth Winnick. Ruth has been a Westport resident for a very long time, and she was completely enamored with what she saw at NoCo, and so she agreed to participate in your annual gala, and she danced with your students.
Yeah.
And she's the only one who got the flowers for some reason. I can't figure out why. But NoCo has a way of having you fall into your arms and really appreciate the kind of work that you do. So let's talk about what you're doing next. You started to say that you have performances, so
Yes.
every year you do what?
So we do 3 main stage productions every year. One of our big things is to offer the students opportunity to be in production. How can you go out into the real world and be in a Broadway production if you've never done a show at that level before? Again, like being a swing, there's different things that come into it that you have to learn on-site training. So one of our big things is for production. We had Rent, which was at the end of last year. Coming up, we have a chorus line, which most of our students here today are going to be in. That's directed and choreographed by myself. It's very great. I don't want to be biased, but it is wonderful. And then after that, we have our play Peter and the Starcatcher, which
will be in
directed by
April.
Danny. Yes, yep.
And that will be at the Downtown Cabaret Theater?
Downtown Cabaret Theater,
in
yeah.
Bridgeport?
Yeah.
Can we take a peek at, so Chorus Line is in week 2 of rehearsal?
Yeah, so we actually just counted yesterday, but we've only had 11 days of rehearsals.
11 days of
Yeah.
rehearsal,
Yeah.
and we're going to show you a little video clip of rehearsal, which was taken last week.
Yeah, about 5 days ago.
So it was probably only 8 days of rehearsal
Yeah.
at that. So let's turn to that, video of a chorus line rehearsal. Most of them
that
have
was
it.
actually like the 3rd day of rehearsals.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's just amazing,
Yeah,
just
thank you.
phenomenal. We mentioned that we had a couple of the first-year students here. Where are the second-year students?
So our second-year students this evening are in New York City at their showcase, their agent showcase, which is similar to what I was explaining earlier on, that we used to do with the Link program. They're performing tonight for around 40 agents in New York City, along with Telsey, yeah, I can't even think of like all the other ones. Art, Karsten, choreographers, directors, you name it. Yeah, they're all there.
And this is just your showcase, there's no other?
No, just ours, just our second-year students.
So when do you hear from Danny as to who's been made an offer?
So we had 2 performances. One happened at 3 o'clock, and I got called at like 5:10 and being like, this person got their first response. And so that was very nice. I think right now we have 2 students who don't have a response just yet out of the 39 students. Yeah. But they have a show right now, so I'm fingers crossed for those 2 people that they get a response during this performance. Yeah. So I should know by like 9:10. Yeah.
Terrific. We weren't really going to do a Q&A tonight, and I hope that you guys will be okay if we, since we're a small group, we have anybody who'd like to ask a question. I'll repeat it, so I know this is being recorded, so I can repeat the question so it gets on the recording. But if not, I think we should wrap up with a little bit of...
Sneak peek again, a chorus line?
Yeah, see a little bit from a chorus line. And Ricky and the students will be milling about for a little bit afterwards, and feel free to, reach out and ask your questions then.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and now we're going to have Destiny, Kirsten, and Riley, who are going to sing at the ballet.
Beneath him, that's what he said, that's what he said. When he proposed, he informed my mother he was probably her very last chance. And though she was 22, though she was 22, though she was 22, she married him. Life with my dad wasn't ever a picnic, more like a come as you are. When I was 5, I remember my mother dug earrings out of her car. I knew that they weren't hers, but it wasn't something you'd want to discuss. He wasn't warm. Well, not to her. Well, not to us. But everything was beautiful at the ballet. Graceful men lift lovely girls in white. Yes, everything was beautiful at the ballet. I was happy at the ballet. That's when I started class, up a steep and very narrow stairway, to the voice like a metronome. Up a steep and very narrow stairway. It wasn't paradise. It wasn't paradise. It wasn't paradise. But it was home.
Mother always said I'd be very attractive when I grow up. Different, she said, with a special something and a very, very personal flair. And though I was 8 or 9, though I was 8 or 9, though I was 8 or 9, I hated her. Now, different is nice, but it sure isn't pretty. Pretty is what it's about. I never met anyone who was different, who couldn't figure that out. So beautiful, I never lived to see. But it was clear, if not to her, Well, then to me. That everyone is beautiful at the ballet. Every prince has got to have his swan. Yes, everyone is beautiful at the ballet. I was pretty
At the ballet.
up a steep and very narrow stairway to the voice like a metronome. Up a steep and very narrow stairway. It wasn't paradise. It wasn't paradise.
It wasn't paradise,
But it was home. I'm not sure what they were for or against, really. I mean, except each other. I mean, I was born to save their marriage, but when my father picked my mother up from the hospital, he said, well, I thought this was gonna help, but I guess it's not. Anyways, I did have a fantastic fantasy life. I used to dance around the living room with my arms up like this. My fantasy was that I was an Indian chief, and he'd say to me, Maggie, do you want to dance? And I'd say, Daddy, I would love to dance. But it was clear, when he proposed, that I was born to help the marriage end well.
that's what he said.
That's what she said. I used to dance around the living room.
It wasn't warm.
Up to her. It was an Indian chief, and he'd say, Maggie, do you wanna dance? And I'd say, Daddy, I would love to. Everything was beautiful at the ballet. Raise your arms, and someone's always there. Yes, everything was beautiful at the ballet. At the ballet. At the ballet. Yes, everything was beautiful at the ballet. I was pretty.
I was happy.
I would love to at the ballet.
Thank you, Kristen, Destiny, and Riley. And thank you, Zach. Thank you all for coming. We hope to see you at a chorus line. That's it. Thanks all for coming.